I stood there, clutching the babysitting list in my trembling hands. 17 kids. My own family had just hired me to watch their children at my sister's wedding. Not as a guest, not even as a relative, but as the help. I remember the laughter echoing from the ballroom, the clinking glasses, the smell of champagne. And I remember my mother's voice, sharp, cold, saying, "It's the least you can do, honey. You don't have a real job anyway." That line burned. They had no idea what I knew or what I was about to do. Because that night, I made my own rules. But before I tell you how everything spiraled out of control, tell me this in the comments. What would you do if your family treated you like the hired help? You're watching Voices of Auntie Ray, the channel where every secret unravels one truth at a time. Tap that subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is right now, because this story doesn't wait for anyone. Let's begin. The night my family tried to humiliate me and ended up destroying themselves instead. The ballroom at Rosewood Estate shimmered like a movie scene, chandeliers, gold ribbons, and laughter bouncing off marble floors. Everyone looked perfect, except me. I was standing by the side doors, holding a clipboard and a bag of crayons. My mother had even handed me a name tag, Child Care Coordinator. I stared at it for a long time before pinning it to my chest. My own family, the Montgomerys, were inside, toasting champagne and posing for pictures, while I was assigned to the kids' corner. 17 children. Sugar-fueled, screaming, running in circles, all dressed in miniature tuxedos and lace dresses. My sister Rachel, the bride, was radiant. She barely looked at me. When I tried to hug her, she pulled back just enough to whisper, "Please don't make a scene, Lila. You know how Mom gets. You know how Mom gets." That was the line that froze me, because I did know. I'd been the problem child since college, the artist who never settled down, the one who made poor choices. But tonight wasn't about old wounds. Tonight was about how they'd chosen to humiliate me, one last time. By 6:45, the ceremony was over. I was herded into the side room with the kids, told to keep them busy while the adults ate dinner. And as I watched the waiters carry silver trays past the open doors, I realized I hadn't even been given a seat at the main table. No place card, no meal, just a clipboard. I laughed quietly, not from humor, from disbelief. That was when my cousin Jenna walked in, phone in hand, whispering to her husband. "Can you believe she actually agreed to do it?" She giggled. "Guess desperate people really will take anything." My chest tightened, but I didn't move. I just smiled, the kind of smile that hides a war behind it. Because what Jenna didn't know was that I had already decided something. I wasn't going to follow their rules anymore. At 7:15, I gathered the 17 kids into a circle. "Okay," I said softly. "New plan." They all looked up, curious, restless. "Tonight, we're going to make our own wedding. You'll be the bride, you'll be the groom, and you," I pointed at the smallest boy, "you'll be the priest." They giggled, clapping their hands. "But," I added, lowering my voice, "this one's going to be different, because in our wedding, the truth always comes out." They didn't understand what I meant, but I did. As the night went on, I turned babysitting into observation, listening, watching. Because when people think you're invisible, they talk freely. And by 8:30, I had already overheard 3 conversations that would change everything I thought I knew about my own family. The first was about me. My mother's voice, sharp, familiar, carried from the hallway. "She's just lucky we gave her something to do. Otherwise, she'd sit around embarrassing us." I froze behind the curtain. My mother, my sister, my cousin, laughing. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. Not from anger, from clarity. That was the moment I decided. If they saw me as the help, then I would help. Myself. To the truth they'd been hiding for years. Because that night, before the cake was cut and the music stopped, I was going to uncover what my family really thought of me and expose the one secret they'd all been protecting. But what I discovered wasn't gossip. It was betrayal, buried in the wedding itself. I didn't mean to overhear it. I was just walking down the hall toward the restroom, wiping chocolate icing off my dress, when I caught the sound of my name. "She doesn't even know yet," a man's voice said. I stopped. The voice came from the catering storage room, door half open, golden light spilling out. My brother-in-law, Ethan, was inside. His phone was pressed to his ear. "No, we'll tell her after the honeymoon," he continued, laughing. "She'll be too busy chasing toddlers to notice anyway." I frowned. Too busy chasing toddlers? My name, my life, being negotiated like a side note. I leaned closer, just enough to hear the next words clearly. "The check's already cleared. Rachel handled the signature." Check? Signature? I froze. My sister's name. My name. Money. Something in my gut twisted. A quiet warning. The same one that saved me from disasters before. When Ethan left the room, I slipped in. The air smelled like coffee and cardboard. On the counter sat an open envelope, half tucked beneath a stack of napkins. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. It was a contract. Or what was left of one. My name was typed at the top. Lila Montgomery, Child Care Services Agreement. Except I never signed up for that. My stomach dropped as I scanned the lines. Payment disbursed upon successful completion of duties during event. Hourly rate, non-negotiable. All liabilities waived by signer. And at the bottom, a signature. Mine. But it wasn't mine. Someone had forged it. I don't know how long I stood there just staring at my own fake name. I could hear laughter echoing from the ballroom, toasts, music. Meanwhile, my own sister, the one whose wedding I helped plan for months, had turned me into hired help on paper. Why? I folded the paper, slid it into my clutch, and walked back toward the children's room. Every step heavier than the last. I wasn't angry yet. I was calculating. Because the thing about betrayal? Once you recognize it, you stop reacting and start documenting. That's what I did. At 9:05, while the kids were playing hide-and-seek behind the chairs, I started taking notes, names, times, who walked where. At 9:20, I texted my old college friend Marisol, who now worked at a law office downtown. "Lila, need to confirm if a forged contract is criminal, asking for a friend." She replied almost instantly. Marisol, "Depends who signed it. Who's the friend?" Lila, "Me." 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Marisol, "Don't do anything stupid tonight. Just keep everything. I'll check the signature logs first thing tomorrow." But tomorrow wasn't soon enough, because that's when the second conversation happened. The one that shattered whatever loyalty I still had left. Around 9:45, I took the kids out to the garden patio to let them play with glow sticks. The air was cool, the moon bright over the lake. I heard my mother's laugh again, that same brittle, polished sound that always meant something was being hidden. She was talking to a man I didn't recognize. Tall, suited, with a small black folder under his arm. "I'm just relieved the transfer's finalized," she was saying. "We can finally stop worrying about her." "And the account?" he asked. "Moved under Rachel's name, as we discussed. The rest will be handled quietly." My heart started to pound so loud I thought they might hear it. Account? Transfer? What account? I pressed closer behind a hedge, the smell of roses sharp in my nose, and held my breath. "You know, she'll find out eventually," the man said softly. "Not if she keeps playing babysitter," my mother replied. "She always did prefer fantasy to responsibility." Then they both laughed. And in that moment, I knew. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about humiliation. It was about money, something they didn't want me to know existed. I turned and looked back at the children running in the grass, their glow sticks painting the night in streaks of blue and green. For a second, everything felt unreal, like I was in someone else's story. But the cold truth settled in quick. This was my story. And for once, I was going to write it my way, because I hadn't just found a forged contract that night. I had stumbled on the first clue to a hidden inheritance, one my family would do anything to keep from me. And before the night ended, I would force every single one of them to face the truth. By the time the clock hit 11:03 p.m., the reception was winding down. The DJ's voice was slurring over the mic. Half the guests were gone, and the air smelled of spilled champagne and wilting roses. Rachel was still glowing, that perfect bride glow that used to make me proud. Tonight, it made my stomach turn. She stood at the mirror in her suite, fixing her lipstick, veil tossed on the chair, humming something too cheerful for someone with a secret. I closed the door behind me, quiet but firm. "You signed my name." She froze. The hum stopped. Slowly, she turned, our eyes meeting through the reflection. "What are you talking about?" she asked, too calmly. I stepped closer, pulling the folded contract from my clutch. The paper was creased now, soft from how many times I'd read it. "This," I said. "You forged my signature. You made me the hired help at your own wedding." Her face didn't even twitch. "Oh, that? Lila, it was just a formality," she said, turning to face me fully now. "The planner needed insurance coverage for the kids. You weren't on staff, so I just filled it out." "By pretending to be me? You're overreacting." "Overreacting." The word landed like a slap. "You do realize that's identity fraud, right?" I whispered. "Oh, please." She laughed, the kind of laugh that hides contempt. "You've always been so dramatic." I could feel heat rising up my chest, my pulse thudding in my ears. "What about the account?" I asked. That got her attention. A flicker, just a fraction of hesitation. "What account?" she said too quickly. "The one Mom said you moved into your name, the one she was relieved about." Silence. I took a step forward. "What did you do, Rachel?" Her voice lowered. "You shouldn't have been listening. And you shouldn't have been stealing." Her lips curved. Not a smile. Something colder. "You always make yourself the victim," she said. "You think you deserve more because life was unfair, but you never notice how much you take from everyone else." "What are you talking about?" "Dad's policy, Lila." "What policy?" "The one that was supposed to pay for my house, my marriage, until you showed up crying about rent and debt and guilt-tripped Mom into changing the beneficiary. You think I didn't notice?" I blinked, trying to understand. "Rachel, that's not— You always ruin things. Always." "So, yes." I took something back. For a second, the air between us went still. Two sisters. One broken trust. And I realized then, this wasn't just a contract. It was revenge. "You forged my name for revenge?" "Call it balance," she said softly. "Besides, it's not like you'll do anything about it." I could have screamed. I could have thrown the paper at her, told the guests, ruined her perfect night. But instead, I smiled. "You're right," I said. "I won't." She blinked, confused. I leaned close enough to smell her perfume, jasmine and lies. Because I already did. I turned and walked out, leaving her standing there, staring after me. In her sweet drawer, under a white silk robe, was a small black envelope. I had seen her hide it earlier that evening. While she danced, I switched it. The original, now in my clutch, held documents I'd photographed and emailed to Marisol. But the one I left behind? It contained something else entirely. Evidence she didn't even know existed. Proof that the inheritance she'd stolen wasn't just family money. It was blood money. the kind that came with secrets deeper than either of us were supposed to touch. And that's when I understood. This wedding wasn't a celebration. It was a cover-up. As I stepped outside into the cool midnight air, I pulled out my phone and hit record. "This is Lila Montgomery," I whispered. "If anything happens to me after tonight, look at the files in my email. Start with the folder marked Rachel." I stopped walking and looked back toward the glowing ballroom windows, laughter spilling out like nothing had changed. But everything had. Because in less than 24 hours, someone from that room would disappear. The ballroom doors shut behind me with a dull, golden thud, muffling the laughter, sealing me into silence. I was in the hotel's east wing now, far from the glowing chandeliers, far from the champagne toasts. It smelled of crayons, spilled juice, and tired secrets. 17 kids. That was the number written on the card my mother handed me. "Make sure they don't run around during the reception," she had said. "You're good with children, aren't you?" But what she really meant was, "You're not good enough to sit at the table." As I looked around the cluttered room, the mess of toys, the unsteady chairs, the half-broken air conditioner humming like a dying bee, I realized this wasn't just neglect, it was punishment. They'd stuck me here deliberately, away from the photographers, away from the guests, out of sight, out of dignity. But what they didn't know was that they had just locked me in the one place I could watch everyone else. Through that single frosted window facing the garden, I saw movement. A flash of white fabric and a man's tuxedo. The bride and groom? No. I squinted. My sister was inside the ballroom. I'd seen her dancing just moments ago. So who was that woman in the wedding dress, standing by the hedge, her hands trembling as she handed something small and glinting to the man beside her? My heart began to pound. I leaned closer to the window, careful not to wake the youngest of the kids sleeping on the carpet. The man turned slightly, and I froze. It was Ethan, my brother-in-law, the groom. I blinked, unable to believe what I was seeing. He kissed her hand, that mysterious woman, and whispered something before she disappeared into the darkness. And then, as if the night itself was mocking me, the ballroom erupted in cheers. They were announcing the couple's first dance. He adjusted his tie and walked straight back inside. That was the first moment I realized I wasn't the only one being played tonight. My family thought they'd humiliate me by making me the babysitter. But they had no idea what I had just witnessed. They had no idea that by the end of the night, the truth would burn brighter than the chandeliers above them. And I, the unwanted babysitter, would be the one to strike the match. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you saw your sister's groom sneaking out with another woman on their wedding night? Because this was only the beginning. The children were finally asleep. The room had gone quiet, save for the hum of the old air conditioner and the distant laughter from the ballroom. I sat there in the dim glow of a lamp, my mind replaying what I saw in the garden, the secret meeting, the kiss, the exchange. Was I sure it was Ethan? Or had the loneliness and humiliation blurred my sight? I stood up and walked to the small table where my purse lay, but something glimmered from beneath one of the chairs. A phone. Not mine, not any of the kids. I picked it up carefully. The screen was cracked, locked by a simple passcode. But when I pressed the power button, I saw a small sticker at the back, the hotel's staff label. Someone had dropped this here recently, and as I tilted it under the light, I froze. The wallpaper wasn't just any photo. It was a close-up of Ethan's hand, wearing his wedding ring, resting on another woman's thigh. I don't know what came over me, but my fingers trembled as I tried different passcodes. Birthdays, names, dates, nothing. I was about to give up when the phone suddenly vibrated. One new message. My heart skipped. It was from an unknown number. The preview read, "Room 305, before she finds out." Room 305. That was on the same floor as the honeymoon suite. I felt a chill run down my spine. The message wasn't meant for me, but fate had dropped it straight into my hands. I glanced at the sleeping kids, then at the door. I knew I shouldn't leave. But curiosity, no, justice, pulled me harder than fear ever could. I cracked the door open, slipping into the hallway. The air was colder here. Silent. I could hear faint music from the ballroom echoing through the vents, the love song my sister had chosen for her first dance. And yet, here I was, walking toward something that could destroy her life. Room 305 was at the far end of the corridor, its golden number plate catching the faint light. The door was slightly ajar. I hesitated, every instinct screaming that this was a bad idea. But I pushed it open anyway. Inside, no one. Just a faint perfume lingering in the air, the kind only the wealthy can afford. A half-empty glass of champagne, a lipstick-stained napkin, and on the nightstand, another phone. But this one wasn't cracked. I reached for it, and as I lifted it, the screen flickered awake. It was unlocked, and staring back at me was a video thumbnail. Ethan, and my sister, in the middle of what looked like a heated argument. My pulse raced as I tapped play. His voice came through first, calm, cold, rehearsed. "You should have stayed quiet, Laura. You always ruin things." My sister's voice broke. "You said it was over, Ethan. You said she was gone." I paused the video, my breath trembling. She was gone? Who was she? That was when I heard the footsteps, slow, steady, coming toward the room. I froze. Someone was coming. I barely had time to hide behind the door before it opened. And then I saw her. The woman from the garden, dressed now in a black coat, her wedding gown gone, her face half hidden beneath her veil. She stepped inside, whispered something under her breath, and picked up the second phone I'd found. I watched her scroll through the messages, then delete the one that said, "Before she finds out." She wasn't just a mistress. She was in on something. Something deeper. Something that went beyond betrayal. I stepped back quietly, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might give me away. That was when she turned, her reflection catching mine in the mirror. Her eyes widened. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Her whisper sliced through the dark like a knife. "You shouldn't be here." For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The silence between us was thick, alive, almost aware of itself. The woman took a step forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor. I could see her now, properly this time. Late 20s. Blonde hair tucked under a black lace veil. Eyes sharp enough to make you forget how to breathe. I tried to speak, but my voice came out smaller than I expected. "Who are you?" She tilted her head. "That depends. Who are you?" I didn't answer. She looked at me for a long time, then smiled. Not kindly, but like someone studying a puzzle they've already solved. "You're her sister, aren't you? The one they didn't invite." My throat tightened. "How do you know that?" She let out a quiet laugh. "Because I know everything your family tries to hide." The air between us grew colder. She walked over to the dresser and set down the champagne glass she'd been holding. "You shouldn't have seen what happened in the garden," she said softly. "But since you did," her gaze lifted, steady, predatory. "Maybe you deserve to know why." I felt my palms sweat. "Why what?" I asked. She smirked. "Why your brother-in-law married your sister in the first place." I frowned. "They're in love." "No," she said flatly. "They're in debt." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Ethan didn't marry Laura for love. He married her for access to your family's money, your father's estate, his company shares, everything." I stared at her. "That's insane." My father died broke. Did he? She asked, her eyes narrowing. Or did someone just make you believe that? My stomach twisted. Who are you? I asked again, louder this time. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the nightstand, picked up the second phone, and tossed it gently toward me. Check the gallery, she said. Go ahead. I hesitated, then opened it. Dozens of photos. Ethan, my mother, a lawyer, my father's old signature on something that looked like a transfer document. These were taken 2 months before your father's death, she said calmly, and 3 days before Ethan proposed to your sister. My hand shook. What are you saying? I'm saying, she whispered, your brother-in-law didn't just marry into your family. He bought it. I felt dizzy. Why are you telling me this? She smirked again. Because you're not supposed to know, and because if I don't tell someone soon, they'll bury me next. My mind spun. Ethan, my mother, the inheritance. None of it made sense, and yet it made too much sense. Before I could ask anything else, she turned sharply toward the door. They're coming, she said. You need to leave. Who's coming? She didn't answer. She grabbed a folded envelope from her coat, pressed it into my hand, and whispered, When you're ready to see the truth, open this. Then she was gone. I stood there, staring at the envelope in my trembling hand. The ballroom music swelled again through the walls, but this time it didn't sound like celebration. It sounded like a warning. And for the first time that night, I realized this wedding wasn't just built on lies, it was built on blood. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you discovered your family's fortune, your entire life, was built on a deal made with the man your sister just married? Because what I was about to find inside that envelope would change everything I thought I knew about my family. I stayed in the hallway for what felt like hours, though it couldn't have been more than a few minutes. The muffled laughter of the wedding guests echoed faintly through the walls, like a world away from the storm brewing in my mind. My hand didn't leave the envelope. It was small, black, and heavy, like the kind people use for secrets. I stepped away from the door and slid down to the floor, resting against the cool marble. The children in the next room stirred briefly, then settled again, their soft breathing a strange comfort. I took a deep breath. Then I opened it. Inside was a USB drive taped to a folded sheet of paper. The paper was typed in neat letters. Watch, listen, understand, before it's too late. My fingers trembled as I pulled the drive from the envelope. I looked down at my phone. My battery was low, but I'd risk it. I found a corner where no one could see me and plugged the drive in. The screen flickered, and a single video file appeared. I tapped it. The first frame was dark, grainy, but then I recognized the location immediately. My childhood home. My breath caught. A voice spoke in the darkness. Ethan's voice. Everything is ready, he said softly. Then another voice. Deep, muffled. My father's voice. Ethan, it's too late now. No, Ethan replied. It's just beginning. The video blurred. A struggle. A loud thump. Then silence. My heart stopped. I leaned closer. Another frame appeared. This one was clearer, taken inside my father's study. Papers scattered, a drawer open, a document lay exposed with my father's signature and a company letterhead. The words were clear. Transfer of full beneficiary rights. Effective immediately. My father's handwriting, my mother's signature on another page, and Ethan's fingerprints in ink on the corner. I gasped, dropping the phone. My knees hit the marble hard. I could hear footsteps now, faint, echoing. Someone was coming. My hand found the paper inside the envelope again. There were instructions in bold. Do not confront them. Do not call anyone. Trust no one. This will cost you everything. I swallowed hard. My mind was spinning faster than I could follow. My sister's wedding, My father's death, Ethan's deceit. It all connected now, and I knew. I wasn't the only one who was going to lose everything tonight. The footsteps were closer. I stuffed the envelope back into my clutch and slipped quietly down the corridor. As I passed room 305 again, it was empty. But something had changed. The air smelled of perfume and danger. I didn't stop walking. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You opened it. Now there's no turning back. Meet me at the garden gate. Midnight. My heart pounded. I looked toward the ballroom. Laughter, dancing, champagne. But my world was no longer there. Mine was now in shadows. At that moment, I knew I had a choice. Run, or step into the truth. And I chose truth. Midnight was coming. And so was the second twist. Midnight had arrived, and the wedding was still alive with music. Laughter spilled out of the ballroom in waves, carried down the corridor like a siren song. But I wasn't in the ballroom anymore. I was at the garden gate. The same gate I'd glimpsed Ethan and the woman in the veil passing earlier. The air was colder here, sharper. I pressed the envelope to my chest, the USB drive heavy in my pocket. A low wind whispered through the hedges, carrying a scent I couldn't place. Roses, perfume, and something metallic. I wasn't alone. A shadow moved. She stepped into the faint moonlight. The woman in the veil. This time she looked different. Her veil was gone, her hair loose, her face pale but fierce. You came, she said softly. Why? I asked, my voice trembling. Because you need answers, she said. And because I'm running out of time. She pulled something from her coat, a thick file of documents. Ethan's deal wasn't just about money, she said. It was about power, and your father. He knew too much. My head spun. Who are you? She looked at me, her eyes cutting through the darkness. My name is Rebecca Harlow. I used to work for your father. I know what happened the night he died. My breath caught. You're saying Ethan killed my father? Not alone, she said. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Your family helped him. My world tilted. That's impossible, I said. You'll decide that for yourself, Rebecca said. But tonight you have a choice. You can walk away, or you can see the truth. She opened the file. Inside were photographs, legal documents, and a single torn letter addressed to my father. My eyes went wide. The letter wasn't signed by Ethan. It was signed by my mother. My mother. I felt like the ground had been pulled from beneath me. Why? I whispered. Rebecca's voice was steady but cold. Because she wanted everything your father built destroyed, and Ethan promised her that power. I stepped back. I don't understand. No one understands yet, Rebecca said. But tonight, you'll understand everything. A sudden noise behind me made us both spin. Ethan. He stepped into the moonlight, his tuxedo sharp, but his expression unreadable. So, you found my little secret, he said softly. Rebecca stepped forward. You promised this would never happen. Ethan's eyes didn't leave me. She doesn't know yet, but she will. My breath caught. Will what? I asked. Ethan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That this wedding was never about love. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. It was about revenge. Ethan tilted his head. And you just walked into it. I looked down at the envelope in my hand. My life had just changed forever, and so had my family's. The garden felt colder now. The air tasted like metal, and the laughter from the ballroom was gone, replaced by silence. Ethan's stare burned into me. Rebecca's eyes never left him. I clutched the envelope tighter, the weight of its contents suddenly heavier than my own body. What is this? I demanded. Ethan smiled faintly, the kind of smile that belongs in photographs but never in trust. It's the truth, he said. Rebecca stepped forward, holding the documents like a weapon. "This wedding is the final chapter in a story your family wrote decades ago," she said. "A story about lies, money, and betrayal." I swallowed hard. Why would my mother do this? Ethan's gaze softened, briefly. "Because she loved power more than family," he said, "and because she made me a promise." My chest tightened. "What promise?" He stepped closer. "That I would finish what she started. That I would take everything." My breath caught. "Everything?" I asked. "Everything," he confirmed. Rebecca's voice was sharp. "And now, you know too much." Ethan's eyes flickered. "Yes, which is why we must end this now." Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching from the ballroom, loud, purposeful. My sister Laura stepped into the garden, her gown flowing behind her. She froze when she saw us. "What's going on here?" she demanded. Ethan looked at her with a strange mixture of pity and triumph. "It's time she knew everything," he said, nodding toward me. Laura's eyes darted between us. "What are you doing here?" "No, Laura," I said, my voice trembling. "You need to hear this." Rebecca stepped forward and laid the documents on the stone bench. Laura gasped when she saw them. "This can't be real," she said. Ethan smiled. "It is, and it changes everything." Laura's voice shook. "Why would my mother do this? Why would she kill him?" Rebecca stepped closer. "Because your mother didn't just want the company, she wanted control, and Ethan promised her that control." Ethan's voice cut in. "And now it's mine." I looked at Laura. Tears welled in her eyes. "I trusted him," she whispered. "And he used you," Rebecca said. The silence was deafening. Then Ethan took a step back. "The wedding was the stage," he said. "The truth is the play. And now the audience must decide." My heart raced. "Laura," I said softly, "you need to know. Your entire life has been built on a lie." She looked at me horrified. "No," she whispered. Ethan smirked. "Yes, and tonight it ends." But before anyone could speak again, a loud crash echoed from the ballroom. Rebecca's eyes widened. "They found us." And in that moment I realized the wedding was far from over. It was only just beginning. The crash came again, louder this time. Glass shattered somewhere in the ballroom, followed by a flurry of screams. I turned toward the noise. The soft melody of the wedding orchestra had been replaced by chaos. Ethan's smirk deepened. "It begins." Rebecca grabbed my arm. "We need to move. Now." I looked back at Laura, who was frozen, eyes wide with fear, clutching her bouquet like a lifeline. "What's going on?" she whispered. "Everything," I said, though my voice cracked. Ethan stepped forward, raising his voice. "Everyone, stop what you're doing!" The music stuttered and died. All eyes turned toward the garden gate. Ethan walked into the open, his tuxedo immaculate despite the chaos around us. "I have a confession," he said, his voice carrying over the stunned crowd. The garden gate swung open slowly. A man stepped through. Detective Harris. "Mr. Donovan," the detective said coldly, looking directly at Ethan. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and murder." Gasps erupted. Ethan's face remained calm, almost smug. "Detective," he said softly, "you don't understand. This wedding is the proof of everything." "Save it for court," Harris replied. Ethan turned to me. He said quietly, "You've been part of this far longer than you know." I stepped back. "What are you talking about?" He smiled faintly. "The envelope, the truth. You opened it because I wanted you to." My heart thundered. "Why?" I asked. "Because this wedding was never just about my marriage," Ethan said. "It was about revealing who in your family can be trusted and who cannot." Rebecca stepped forward. "It was a test." Laura stared at Ethan, her voice trembling. A test? This is insane. Ethan nodded. It's the truth, Laura, and the truth hurts. Suddenly the air was filled with shouts. Someone shouted about fire. The lights flickered. Smoke curled toward the garden. The wedding guests panicked. Chaos spread like wildfire. In the confusion, Ethan turned toward me. It's your choice now. Expose them all, or walk away. But know this, the moment you open that file fully, there's no going back. My hand went to the envelope again. My mind raced. Laura's voice broke through my thoughts. Please. I looked at her, at Ethan, at Rebecca. The smoke thickened. Somewhere in the chaos, the sound of the church bells rang midnight, and I opened the envelope. What I found inside would change everything. Not just about my family, but about myself. And it was the moment my life truly split in two. The truth, or the lie. Which would I choose? The garden was chaos now. Guests screamed, glass shattered, and smoke curled through the night air like living shadows. Somewhere behind me, Laura sobbed quietly, clutching her bouquet. Ethan stood still, unshaken, as if the chaos were part of his plan. Rebecca gripped my arm tightly. This is your moment. Decide. My hand hovered over the envelope. Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, but something deeper pulled me forward. I tore it open. Inside were photographs, legal documents, and a single recording. The photographs showed my father meeting Ethan in a dimly lit room years ago. My mother was there too, her expression cold, her hand resting on Ethan's arm. The documents were damning: contracts, signatures, transfer orders, proof that my father's company was stolen before his death. But it was the recording that made my breath catch. A video, grainy but clear enough to recognize voices. My father's voice. You've crossed a line, Ethan. This is no longer business. Ethan's voice, calm but cold. It's never been about business. It's about proving who is loyal and who is not. My mother's voice. Do it. Finish it. A loud thud, a scream, silence. Then my father. Protect her. My name. My knees gave way. Ethan stepped toward me. You see now. It was never just about control. It was about a test of loyalty. And you passed. And failed. Rebecca's voice was low but sharp. You have to decide. Expose them now, or let them destroy everything. Laura stepped forward, her tears streaking her face. Please don't destroy us. I looked at Ethan. Why tell me now? Ethan smiled faintly. Because you were never supposed to find out this way. But once you do, you can't unhear it. My hand went to the envelope again. I looked at my family, at Rebecca, at Ethan. The noise of chaos behind me faded into silence, and I made my choice. I stepped forward. The world needs to know the truth, I said. Ethan's expression shifted, almost admiration. Rebecca nodded. Laura fell to her knees. I took the recording out of the envelope. This is going public, I said. Ethan's smirk faded. Then it's done, he said softly. The lights went out. A moment later, I heard glass breaking again. And then, silence. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. Guests scattered, some screaming, some frozen in disbelief. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Rebecca pulled me aside. You just set off a chain reaction. Are you ready for what comes next? I nodded. My hands still shook. Laura sat on the ground, her face buried in her hands. Ethan was being escorted by detectives, calm as if he were walking into a victory parade rather than an arrest. This isn't over, he said softly to me. It's just changed. Rebecca handed me her phone. Start recording everything. Your family, the truth. Everything must come out. Later, in a quiet room away from the chaos, Rebecca and I listened to the recording again. It revealed far more than I imagined, a network of secrets, betrayals, and a decades-long scheme involving my family. My father had been protecting me, not just from Ethan, but from my own family's greed. Rebecca whispered, "You were meant to inherit nothing, but you inherited the truth." My mind raced, the innocence of my childhood, gone, replaced by the heavy burden of truth. Weeks later, the trial began. My family was in the spotlight, every lie laid bare in court. Laura testified with tears. My mother remained silent, her eyes cold as stone. Ethan's smirk had vanished. Justice was being served, but it felt hollow. I realized something. Exposing the truth didn't heal wounds. It opened new ones. The trial wasn't the end. Late one night, I got a call from Rebecca. "You think this is over? It's not. Ethan wasn't acting alone." She sent me another file, encrypted. I opened it. Another name, another betrayal, my mother's signature again. But also, my father's old business partner, someone I trusted. The plot was far deeper, and it was still alive. Months later, I returned to the wedding venue, now silent and abandoned. The echoes of that night still lingered in the walls. Rebecca stood with me, looking at the empty garden gate. "We've started something," she said quietly. "The truth will keep coming out until it can't be hidden anymore." I looked at her and nodded, then let it come. I stood alone on the steps of the courthouse. The sun rose over the city. A new day. My phone buzzed. Another message from Rebecca. "Truth is never safe, but it's worth fighting for." I smiled softly. I wasn't just me anymore. I was the voice of the truth, and I was ready for whatever came next. The wedding was the beginning, not the end.